The honourable member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and it is my absolute pleasure to be talking on Bill C-31, the Budget Implementation Act. Mr. Speaker, a solid middle class is the foundation of Canada's economy. Middle-class Canadians are the glue that bind our society together, and we recognize that our country can only be as strong as its middle class. Fortunately, Canada's middle class has seen increases of about 30% in their take-home income since 1976, and the share of Canadians living in low-income families is now at its lowest level over the past 3 decades. A recent Statistics Canada study has revealed that since our Conservative government has taken office, the middle class has flourished significantly, and I quote, "The median net worth of Canadian family units was $243,800 in 2012, up 44.5%, Mr. Speaker, from 2005, and almost 80% more than the 1999 median of 137, adjusted for inflation, 137,000. Another study, this one from the New York Times, has indicated that Canada's middle class is better off financially than that of the U.S. I quote, "After tax, middle-class incomes in Canada, while substantially behind in 2000, now are higher than in the United States. Further, since 2006, Canadian families in all major income groups have seen increases of about 10% or more in their take-home incomes." It may be hard for the opposition to believe, Mr. Speaker, but even the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirms that our government has put $30 billion of tax relief back into Canadian pockets annually, benefiting, low-income and middle-income families the most. This is great news for Canada, and it reflects our government's careful navigation through the worst global economic downturn since the start of the Second World War. Since the beginning of the recovery, Canada's economy has posted one of the strongest job creation records in the G7, with more than 1 million net new jobs created since the depths of July 2009. At a time when other countries' financial systems were brought to the brink of bankruptcy, Canada's banks remained the soundest in the world. When the countries increased taxes, we kept taxes at record lows. When other countries increased taxes, we kept our taxes at record lows. And in fact, the federal tax burden is the lowest it has been in over 50 years, thanks to our tax plan. Since 2006, Canadians have benefited from significant, broad-based tax cuts introduced by our government. These tax cuts, which the opposition voted against time and time again, have given individuals and families the flexibility to make the choices that are right for them, and to help build solid foundations for our future economic growth, more jobs, and a higher living standard for Canadians. Canadians at all income levels are benefiting from tax relief, with the low and middle income Canadians receiving proportionately greater relief. In 2014, an average family of 4 is saving close to $3,400 in tax, while 1 million Canadians have been removed from the tax rolls altogether. You see, unlike the high-tax NDP and Liberals, our government believes in keeping more money in the pockets of hardworking Canadian families. That is why we cut the lowest personal income tax rate to 15%. It's why we increased the amount Canadians can earn tax-free. It's why we reduced the GST from 7% to 5%, putting more than $1,000 back in the pockets of an average family of 4 in 2014. And we established the landmark tax-free savings account, the most significant advance in the tax treatment of personal savings since the introduction of RRSPs in 1957. In addition, we introduced a variety of tax credits that recognize the costs borne by hardworking Canadian families. Credits like the child tax credit, the children's fitness tax credit, the children's arts tax credit, the family caregiver tax credit, and the first-time homebuyers tax credit. As a parent, I believe there is no higher calling than that of raising a child. and no reward is its equal. Canadians who have children deserve the government's full support, and particularly when it comes to recognizing some of the additional costs borne by adoptive parents. We heard parents' concern that the adoption expense tax credit was not sufficient, and that's why in Economic Action Plan 2014, our government acted by enhancing the tax credit to support these parents even more. By better recognizing the costs of adoption through increased tax relief, we are making it easier for middle-class families to grow and to make Canada stronger. At the same time, our government is committed to ensuring that the tax system reflects the evolving nature of the healthcare system and the healthcare needs of Canadians. We all use the healthcare system, and we want it to remain strong and sustainable so that it is there for Canadians when they need it. In fact, under our government, healthcare transfers are at an all-time high. From over $20 billion when we formed government to over $32 billion this year and growing. Unlike the old Liberal government, we have not cut funding to provinces for health care and education. And I find it comical, sir, when we hear that the Liberals cut a deficit. Well, we're doing that too, but they did it on the backs of education and healthcare, and we're doing it in a responsible, sustainable manner. Similarly, under our funding formula, healthcare transfers will also grow in a sensible and sustainable way. We will keep growing healthcare funding to ensure Canadian families can depend on our healthcare system today and in the future. Moreover, we recognize there are external healthcare costs that Canadians have been paying for out-of-pocket, like service animals in the case, and that, for example, severe diabetes, being alerted by diabetes alert dogs. And that's why Bill C-31 has proposed an expansion of the list of eligible expenses for medical expenditures. These important measures are just a handful of examples illustrating how we have responded to the needs of Canadian families and helped Canadians keep more of their hard-earned money. Perhaps one of the most profound ways we are helping middle-class Canadians is making sure future generations won't be paying for the past obligations of their parents and grandparents by returning to balanced budgets in 2015. And in fact, that, Mr. Speaker, was one of my key motivations when I decided to run for the Conservative Party of Canada. I do not want my children or anyone's children's futures mortgaged. Unlike the Liberal leader who believes that the budget will magically balance itself, our government has made tough decisions to return to balance, and we have never wavered from our objective. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I'm reminded of how my husband and I sat down and talked about the importance of us paying off our mortgage when we were younger. And, you know, we made tough choices, the same way the government is doing now. We made responsible choices. And the result is we have no mortgage. The Government of Canada is doing that for future generations right now, and I am so proud of the work that is being done. By eliminating the deficit, we will ensure solid, stable prosperity for all Canadians well into the future. Indeed, balancing the budget and reducing debt will ensure taxpayer dollars are used to support important social services, such as health care, rather than paying to reduce the debt with interest costs. It will preserve Canada's low tax plan and allow for further tax reductions, fostering growth and the creation of jobs for the benefit of all Canadians. It will also strengthen the country's ability to respond to longer-term challenges, such as population aging and the unexpected global economic shocks, which this government so successfully negotiated and withstood in the recent economic crisis. This government understands the importance of middle-class Canadians, and as our actions have shown, we listened and have ensured a middle class for this country that will continue to lead the world. Mr. Speaker, I am very proud of Bill C-31. I am very proud of this government's responsible approach to deficit reduction, measured and responsible approach, and I sincerely hope that we can engage the opposition to support this very important budget implementation bill. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for York South Weston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my friend's comments. However, the implementation of FATCA will have serious implications on children in her riding. And the implementation of FATCA, according to James Jatras, who was a former U.S. diplomat, is that the purpose of this FATCA agreement is to nullify protections, Canadian protections, under the Bank Act, the Personal Information Protection and Electronics Documents Act, that's otherwise known as PIPEDA, the Canadian Human Rights Code, and especially the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. These people are not just resident Americans, but at least 1 million Canadian citizens, many of whom live in her riding. Claims that the Canadians' personal data would not be forwarded to the NSA and other intelligence agencies are laughable. And some of those persons are children, Mr. Speaker. And I wonder what the member opposite would like to suggest, that this bill somehow doesn't protect the safety and the security and the personal information of these people, including children.
Honourable member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for that question. I very much appreciate that he understands that our budget implementation bill is there to protect all Canadians, including children. And of course, the best way to ensure that we have a prosperous tomorrow is to ensure that we pay the debt down today. And that is the #1 priority in this budget implementation bill, Mr. Speaker. And as a mother of 2 children, a 22-year-old and a 16-year-old, I'm very grateful that this government is contributing to ensuring that their futures are not mortgaged. Je vous remercie.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Kingston and the Islands.
Mr. Speaker, just in response to that last comment, it's not always the case. If you need to get a post-secondary education, it's not always the case that you should delay it. It is sometimes the right thing to do is to borrow some money and get that education so you can have that earning potential and have that quality of life. Mr. Speaker, my colleague from the Conservative Party said that there's no higher calling than raising children, and I agree with that. Problem is that many Canadians are struggling in raising their children because of their income level. The tax credits that my Conservative colleague mentioned are tax credits. They're not refundable. And so you have to be making a good amount of taxable income in order to benefit from those tax credits. So my question is, if raising children is so important, and even more important for people at the lower end of the income scale, aspiring to reach the middle class, why can't we make those some of those tax credits refundable?
Member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for that excellent question. And I so appreciate it as the mother of 2 children, and I will confirm there is no higher calling than helping the next generation. I happen to have a son who is in university. And he knows he's investing in his future. He doesn't expect it to be handed to him on a silver platter with a spoon that's matched to the set. He expects to work hard every summer. He expects to work and volunteer in the community during the winter. And he expects to have a little bit of a debt load when he comes out of university. He also expects that there won't be magic to balance the budget. He expects that he will be working hard to pay that debt load down as he gets employable and good jobs. And that, Mr. Speaker, I think is important, that we impart on our children the need and requirement that they are a part of solving the problems of the future. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Dauphin Swan River Marquette.
I listened with great interest to my colleague from Winnipeg South Centre speech, who I have the honour of serving in the Manitoba caucus with, and I consider her one of the most bright and talented MPs in this entire House. And I too am very proud to be a Conservative member of Parliament, because we are the only party that talks about the need to actually create wealth. The 2 parties on the other side, the left and the far left, their economic policies can be summed up in 3 words: spend, spend, spend. Now you have to have something to spend. Could my honourable colleague please comment on the measures in our budget that will help to grow our Canadian economy?
Honourable member for Winnipeg South Centre, a short response, please.
A short response. Well, quel dommage, parce qu'il y a beaucoup de choses dans notre budget. I want to thank the honourable member for his comments and particularly his kind remarks. I am a kindred spirit with him. I believe that we want to invest in a future so that we will enable people to assist Canada in creating wealth and being the country of the 21st century. That's what I hope for my children. That's what I hope for all children coming up. And the members' comments are so important because it's not about a handout. It's about a hand up. And we're helping the next generation so that they can prosper long into the future through jobs and economic growth. Thank you so much.